YouTube family, what's up? I'm Jamal Walker, CEO of the Millennium Academy, and today we're going to give you the event cheat codes. Do me a favor, like, follow, and subscribe if you are an event curator, event promoter, event planner, or you're simply in the space and just looking to grow. Today, we're going to get into the 7 Facebook audience strategies. Again, we want to make sure that you are making more money, not losing money. We want to make sure that you're not wasting your ad spend, and we want to make sure you're building momentum so you can sell out more events. So without further ado, let's go on and get right to it. All right, family, let's jump right into it. The first thing you need to do is you need to make sure that you are understanding what a pixel is and why it matters. All right, so a pixel is your Facebook code, right? It's your Facebook code that talks about the behavior of your event, right? So you need to make sure your pixel is installed. A pixel is like your GPS of your marketing, okay? So if you're thinking you're too cool and you don't have a pixel, right? You cannot scale anything if you don't know how to measure what's going on, okay? So that's why it matters, all right? So let me give you a couple tips on why it matters. You also need your pixel to know how to retarget, all right? All right, you need your pixel to know how to retarget and to optimize. All right, retargeting and optimizing are huge, right? People are going to come to your site and view. People are going to come to your site and make actions. So you need to know how to move forward with those actions, and your pixel is going to tell you exactly what they did, when they did it, and what type of person they are, okay? Also, your pixel, it feeds a better algorithm data. Okay, right? So your pixel feeds this algorithm data. It leads to smarter delivery, right? It leads to you ensuring that you're not wasting your budget, right? It ensures that you are targeting the right person, all right? So your pixel uses a better algorithm data, right? And it reaches the right person if it's set up correctly, all right? And my favorite is it unlocks custom and look-alike audiences, okay? Right? This is really huge. It's very, very special and part of your marketing when your pixel goes back to the people who were warm, or the pixel goes back to the people that were engaged, right? The pixel also can create a look-alike of those people who bought or engaged within a certain time period, okay? So guys, the pixel really, really matters, and you must understand that it is your GPS in your marketing. Whatever you can't measure, you won't be able to scale, all right? You'll also be able to retarget and optimize by setting up your pixel the right way, right? It'll give your algorithm the right data to reach the right person. And then lastly, your custom and lookalike audiences, you'll be able to reach those and create those if you have a pixel. Okay, so let's go on and get into the common mistakes, all right? The number one mistake is you're setting up your pixel once, right? And you're on your 3rd, 4th, or 5th event and you're not testing the pixel, all right? You need to know how to test the pixel. Number 2, right? You're installing the pixel too late. Please make sure you don't do a campaign without installing the pixel. You won't know how to measure your data, scale, you won't know how to retarget. It won't give you the right data to sell out your event, okay? Number 3 is my favorite. This is a big common mistake, okay? Most of you are only setting up your pixel on your checkout page. Okay, so those are 3 common mistakes that you guys are making, right? You're not testing your pixel, right? You're installing the pixel way too late, like during the campaign or after the campaign. And number 3, your pixel is only set up on your checkout page. I'll give you a bonus one, all right? So you guys are only setting up your pixel for page views or link clicks. Okay, so these are 4 common mistakes that you want to make sure you avoid. All right, let's get into the sauce. These are the actionable steps you're gonna make to make sure you are aware of what the pixel is and that you're avoiding the common mistakes. All right, so let's get right into it. All right, imagine you're throwing a party and you just forget to collect RSVPs. That's exactly what not setting your pixel up equates to, right? If you do a party, you want to collect the data. You want to be able to talk to the people who came to the party and enjoyed the party, all right? So here are some actionable steps for you to make sure that you are running your pixel the right way and that you're taking advantage of working smarter, not harder. Okay, so the number one thing is you want to make sure you're setting up your pixel with the Meta Events Manager. Okay, number 2, right? Instead of tracking only your page views, okay, you want to track purchase conversions. You also want to track abandoned carts. Okay. All right. You also want to track checkouts on your page, right? You want to track more than just who the person is. You want to track their behavior, right? And you usually want to track higher conversion events like your purchase conversion, your abandoned carts, and your checkouts, right? These are the people that made it to the bottom of the funnel, all right? Lastly, you want to make sure that you are using the Meta Pixel Helper to click around your site and confirm that the pixel fires on all pages. Okay, huge common mistake that I talked about earlier is you guys are only setting up the pixel on your checkout page. All right, you want to make sure you track the user's journey. So you want to track the fact that they came to the landing page and they looked at pictures, and then they clicked on the VIP bottle service information, and then they went to the cart and they added on the VIP, but then they did an extra upgrade. Okay, you want to confirm that the pixel fires on all pages. Okay, all right, and these 3 steps will help you make sure that your ad engine, it turns from blind to brilliant. Okay, so that wraps up the first stage with the custom audience and making sure you're just aware of why it matters. 2, you avoid the common mistakes. And 3, you take the right actions, right? You want to go to the Pixel Meta Events Helper, right, and add the Chrome extension. You want to make sure it fires properly. Number 2, you want to make sure you're not only just tracking with your pixel for page views and link clicks or checkouts, you want to make sure that you're tracking purchase conversions and abandoned carts, right, in addition to checkouts. And then lastly, to make sure this engine is running efficiently, you want to confirm that the pixel is firing on all pages. Okay, family, let's get into the second step. Okay, we're on the second step of the custom ad strategy, right? And today's goal is to make sure that you are aware, right, and that you execute on the knowledge that you're learning today, because we want to make sure that you are working smarter and not working harder. All right, so audience segmentation. Okay, typically what audience segmentation means is that your leads are all not equal, right? People during your campaign are viewing your content, right, and they're at different stages of your funnel, right? You don't need to be talking to everyone the same, all right? So again, your leads are not equal, your prospects are not equal, all right? You have to be talking to everyone differently at every different stage, all right? That's why you have to segment your audience into cold, warm, or hot audience, so that you prep them up to buying your content, prep them up to buying your service, or prep them up to buying your product, all right? Right, so let's get into why it matters, all right? The real reason why it matters is you serve the right people. Okay? All right, stay with me. So when you serve the right people, right, you don't waste time with the wrong content converting to the wrong audience. All right? So that's really, really huge when you're segmenting your audience. Number 2, all right, you increase the relevance of your audience converting because you don't waste money or time talking to the wrong audience. All right, so somewhat similar to the first point, but just getting into the conversion of you targeting the wrong person, but also wasting money with the wrong person. Okay, right? So here's the third point, and one of my favorite is you don't want to overlap the segments, right? This is why it matters. Overlapping the segments, it confuses your pixel. It confuses Meta. Okay? So to recap this, guys, audience segmentation really matters because you want to make sure that you're serving the right people during your campaign. You want to make sure you're not wasting money and resources during your campaign. And you want to make sure that you're not overlapping your segments, right? Wasting creatives. You don't want to waste a creative, and you don't want to waste a good ad caption. You don't want to confuse Meta pixel while it's delivering to the right or wrong audience, okay? So you want to make sure you get this correctly, okay? Here's some common mistakes before we get into the goal. The most common mistake that I see is people running the same ad the entire time, right? Running an ad to all 3 audiences at one time. Okay, that's a huge mistake. Okay, you want to make sure that you're not doing this, but we'll get into the gold in a bit, right? That's a huge mistake. You guys are running one ad, you're setting it and forgetting it, and you're running it to all 3 audiences at one time. You're running the ad to the cold audience, the middle of the funnel warm audience, and the bottom of the funnel all at one time. All right, number 2. Okay, you guys aren't separating the audiences, okay? Right? You need to know how to separate the cold, warm, and hot audiences. And I'll get into the gold in a bit, but you gotta know how to separate the audience, right? You have to know how to label it, right? And you have to know how to create that audience as well, all right? And then number 3, we're gonna get into overlapping as well, right? Overlapping is really a really big common mistake because you don't have a path, right? There's no clear path to the right audience. Having a clear path to the right audience is key. Again, you don't want to talk to the person at the wrong time because everybody enters the funnel stage in a different stage. So you have to prep them the right way. You can't just start off by selling the entire time, right? So you have to have a clear path to the right audience, right? And you have to know when and where to start. All right, so let's get into the gold nuggets. All right, actionable steps. All right, your funnel is just like your conversion or your conversation, right? You do not propose, right, marriage on the first date, all right? You can't propose on the first date. That'll be a little wild, right? So you gotta have steps, right? You have to have a clear path. You have to date the audience first, all right? So, guys, the first step is you have to segment by behavior. I see people just get this wrong all the time, right? You don't segment by the person. You don't segment by who the person is or where they are. You segment by their behavior, right? So when you segment by their behavior, you're segmenting and you get a chance to understand if they're warm, if they're cold, or if they're hot, okay? Because you're segmenting by behavior. When you segment by behavior, you're segmenting by, here's what I mean, by video views, okay? You're segmenting by, right, 90 days of IG engagers, okay? So here's two cool examples for you guys, all right? You have to segment by behavior. Number two, all right, you have to use custom audiences, all right? So you have to use custom audiences for people that already interacted with you, all right? So that's really huge. You got to use your custom audiences. You have to interact with the people who interacted with you, right? And you have to create those custom audiences. So what you want to do is you want to create website. You can create website viewers. You can create video viewers. You also can create those from your email list, and so on and so forth, okay? So you have to know how to create the custom audiences. Number three, my favorite, you have to label these custom audiences, right? And you have to label them the right way so that it's really, really clear inside of your ad manager. So my favorite is you have to label the top of funnel, you have to label the middle of the funnel, and then you have to label the bottom of the funnel. So the top of the funnel is usually 75% of people who watch the video, okay? And you can do a middle of the funnel of people who engage with your event for 3 days, okay? And then the bottom of the funnel, you want to retarget the people who abandon the cart. Okay, all right. This makes sure that you are sending different messages to different people at different times, okay? All right, so that wraps up audience segmentation. Again, we're gonna talk about why it matters. You need to serve the right people, right? You don't want to be talking to the entire audience as in if they're at the same stage, okay? Again, it's just like dating. On your first date, you do not want to propose marriage, all right? So you have to date the audience in stages, all right? You don't want to waste money at the wrong time. So each stage, each segment has a specific budget, all right? You don't want to overlap your segments, right? Each segment is spoken to in a different way and has different content, all right? So your top of the funnel has different content than your middle of the funnel. Top of the funnel is usually awareness and shorter, punchier content, right? Middle of the funnel is usually reinforcing people on your brand, reinforcing what they're excited about, right? And then the bottom of the funnel is usually testimonials. It's usually a sold out event, right? It's usually the product and why it worked, right? Okay, so you don't want to overlap your segments because it'll confuse Meta, all right? Getting into the common mistakes as we did, right? You don't want to run all of your segments at the same time. You want to interchange them, okay? Each segment has to have a different budget, right? A different message and a different creative, all right? Number two, you gotta separate them. So you gotta separate the cold, warm, and hot audiences. All right, you gotta separate the top of funnel, middle of funnel, and bottom of the funnel. All right. Number three, you wanna make sure you have a clear path, right? And clear path just means labeling it the right way, labeling it and attacking it the right way. The biggest action steps you need to take from this portion is you gotta make sure you are segmenting based on behavior, right? It has to be based on behavior, not just the actual audience, okay? So you gotta get a little bit more descriptive. You want to go 7 days out, 30 days out, 90 days out, 360 days out of video views or website views or 90 days of IG engagers. You gotta get more specific with these actions, all right? Number two, you gotta be able to create these custom audiences and create the custom audiences the right way. Our favorites are the website views, the video views, and email lists, right? I'll take it even further and go to engagers, people that engaged and did an action, because this is a behavior. And then lastly, with the action steps, you want to make sure that when you're communicating with people that have viewed your content at 75%, right, at the top of the funnel. Or in the middle of the funnel, you want to make sure you are going after the people that engage with your content for 3 days long, right? And in the bottom of the funnel, you're only talking to the people that abandoned the cart, or you're only talking to the people who initiated the cart. Okay, so guys, that wraps up the power and the power and the strategy behind making sure that you are segmenting your audience the right way. Hey family, I'm assuming that you're enjoying the episode. I'm assuming that you're getting some sauce, right? But I'd like to invite you to our masterclass we're doing this Thursday. Okay, we have a wait list for the first 100 people, right? And it's going to give you even more game. So go to themillenniumacademy.com. Yeah, I'll give you a little homework. So go to themillenniumacademy.com, enter in your information, and see if you qualify to join our masterclass, where we're going to give you even more sauce, even more game on how to talk to your audience, right, the right way, and create custom audiences that sell out your event. All right, let's get back to the episode. All right, family, we are now into the third custom audience strategy. All right, and this one is the lookalike audience. I really, really like this one, so pay attention. All right, so lookalikes, they allow you to scale to your best performing audiences. Okay, they allow you to talk to people who behave just like your buyers. All right, so even if they've never heard of you, they allow you to talk to them just like your buyers. So they're usually like best friends of your buyers, family members of your buyers, right? Close relatives of your buyers, right? So you're really, really close and on track if you understand how to create and you understand how to maneuver lookalike audiences, okay? All right, so let's get right into it. Let's talk about why it matters, all right? So getting into why it matters, if you understand how your best performing people are moving, then you can understand the ideal customer. Okay. Right. So you want to be able to scale your best performing data to your ideal customer. All right. This is really huge. A lot of us don't understand where our ideal customers are. So creating a lookalike of the ideal customer allows us to target the ideal customer a lot more effectively. All right. Number two, right? Make sure you are utilizing your lookalike audience at the top of the funnel and the middle of the funnel, right? This is when it's most effective, right? When you start off your campaign with a lookalike audience, it allows it to grow and it allows the pixel to talk to more people, to gravitate, to collect more data, right? To talk to more prospects at the beginning of your campaign. Always remember the top and the middle of the campaign, these are your nurturing stages. This is your awareness stage. This is when you're like, hey, I'm doing something dope, okay? So you want to create a lookalike audience of the people who are already engaged in what you're doing that's dope, right? So that they could behave just like the people that bought, all right? All right, so don't let that one go over your head. Make sure you are initiating the top of the funnel and middle of the funnel lookalike audience, right? Don't miss out on that. Don't only just do an interest ad, right? Don't only just do a broad targeted ad, okay? Make sure you are doing a lookalike audience at the top and the middle of the funnel, okay? Number three, right? My favorite on why it matters, okay? Pay attention to this, right? This will lower your cost per result. right? It's always easier to talk to people that are similar to your buyers than just cold traffic, all right? So if you set up your lookalike the right way, right? If you initiate it and you understand what you're doing in the top of the funnel and middle of the funnel, it will give you a lower cost per result, a lower cost per click, a lower CPA, right? So these are the three things that matters, and you guys better make sure you nail it, because if you do, right, you'll not only save money, but you'll save time, right? You'll be able to nurture and talk to the audience a lot more effectively because you're not talking to a stranger, right? You're talking to someone who is similar to the buyer, right? So this is really good strategy into your campaign. All right, let's talk about some common mistakes. Common mistakes, right? Using low quality audience sources. Okay. Guys, you don't want to just add email list, right? You don't just want to add email list. You want to use high quality email sources. So I'll get into that in the action steps, but don't use low quality audience sources, all right? Don't do that, okay? Number two, right? You need to be able to refresh. So this is the big mistake. You're not refreshing. So no refreshing of your audience. Okay, and number three, okay, a lot of us do this. I've seen a lot of our clients do this. You rely on 1% only, on your 1% audience, lookalike audience only, okay? Guys, most of you guys are doing this. You guys are only using low quality audience sources, right? You're not refreshing the audience data with the lookalike, right? You're just leaving the 1%, or you're not creating more audiences with it, right? And you're only relying on the 1%. So let's get into the gold nuggets, right? This is why we're here, right? Take notes on this, because lookalikes will set you up in the beginning for a win in the end, all right? So, right, picture your top 100 buyers, right? Now imagine duplicating all of their traits, right? All of their behaviors, right? Imagine duplicating that, right? Across thousands of people, right? That's what you're doing when you are creating a lookalike, right? You're just duplicating your current buyers that understand this is dope, I'm engaged with this, I like this, right? And you're duplicating it across 100 or thousands of more audiences, okay? So the first thing I need you guys to do, super simple, is create high quality audiences. What is a high quality audience with a lookalike? Okay. What is a high quality audience with a lookalike? You guys need to make sure that a high quality audience with a lookalike, these are customers that have spent more than $100 in the last 60 to 90 days, okay? Okay, customers that have spent more than $100, okay? More than $100 or more in the last 60 to 90 days, okay? All right, the second one, right? This one's the obvious, right? But I wanna make sure that you guys aren't making this mistake, right? Don't only rely on the 1%, build out 2%, 3%, or my favorite, 5% lookalike audiences. Okay? Build out 2%, 3%, 5%, right? You gotta test these side by side so you can have different ad sets that are 2%, 3%, or 5%, right? This creates a broader ad, and this will allow you to target more people. This will allow you to find your sweet spot. This will allow you to say, oh my gosh, this 3% lookalike got me way more engagement and awareness at a lower cost per click, okay? At a lower cost per click. So you wanna make sure that the action steps are you building out 2%, 3%, and 5%, and do not only rely on the 1%, okay? Last but not least, right? You wanna pair your interests and your demographic filters with even more tighter results, okay? So when done right, this takes all the cheat codes and scales all the cold traffic, right? So you're not just starting from scratch, okay? Make sure that you pair the interest, right? You wanna make sure you pair the interest with new demographic filters. Okay. If you don't refresh your audience, right, you're using the same interest and you're using the same demographic. So make sure you refresh your audience and you add new interest and new demographic filters along with new 2%, 3%, or 5% lookalike audiences, okay? So guys, that wraps up the power of utilizing lookalike audiences and making sure you have strategy, okay? This is the fourth audience strategy, and this honestly is one that most people avoid, right? Most people just exclude. Most people just look it over. They get lazy at this strategy, right? So this is where we tap in. This is where we get strong. This is where we fight back. This is where we have some insurance that our event is going to be excellent. All right, let's do it. So the exclusion strategies, all right? This exclusion strategy really matters because not everybody should be marketed to. Not everybody should see the ad, right, that bought the ticket already, right? Exclusions are to protect the budget from going to people that are already bought, they've already converted, right? So you must exclude this type of traffic, right, at certain stages of your funnel. Again, let me dial it back. Let me make sure y'all are with me. The exclusion strategy is when some people get lazy, right? They think that they can just still show the same advertisement to people that bought, right? But no, right? Marketing to everybody is like marketing to nobody. You need to market to the right people at the right time. So exclusion, right, and excluding the people that already bought what you have to offer, right, is really, really key. You should not be marketing to those people at a specific time. So let's get into why. Let's get into the why, all right? So the why here is that you wanna prevent money by showing ads to the people that already converted, right? So, okay, prevent money, right? The reason why I keep saying prevent money, preserve money, right? Don't waste the money is because in the middle and the bottom of the funnel, you want to make sure that you attack that with your largest budget, okay? So excluding the people who've already paid and wasting money on the people that already paid is delusional, it's diabolical, right? You're giving money to someone or you're showing the ad to someone who already gave you your $100, right? Why not spend that money on someone who is ready to convert, right? So prevent the money from being wasted. Number two, right, when you add an exclusion strategy, right, you avoid ad fatigue. You avoid ad fatigue, all right? This is really, really huge, right? Ad fatigue happens when you have overlapping campaigns. All right, so you want to avoid ad fatigue. You don't want to show your ad to people who've already bought because it'll increase your cost per acquisition. It'll increase your cost per metric, right? So even though you got a good creative, even though you got a good theme, even though you're on track and you're confident, right? Your ad will get fatigued if you're showing it to the wrong people, right? And then you start spending more money. Then you'll think, oh wait, I need to change my ad. And then you'll mess up your flow or your momentum, okay? So that's why it really matters, all right? The last one is, right, you don't want to force the ad budget, okay? Okay? You only want to show the ad budget to relevant prospects. So you don't want to force the ad budget, right? You want to show it to relevant prospects. Okay? You don't want to force the ad budget. Once you start forcing your ad budget, right, you screw up your activity with Meta. All right? So we went over the 3 things on why it matters, why exclusion strategy matters, why you shouldn't get lazy, right? Why you shouldn't just tap out and do the basic strategies, right? You want to prevent the money. You want to prevent the ad fatigue, and you don't want to force the ad budget. You want to show your ad to relevant people. All right, let's get into some of the common mistakes. So I want to make sure that you avoid those common mistakes. All right, so some of the common mistakes are, right, retargeting people who bought. Okay. Number 2, right, forgetting to exclude the audience, right, at the top of the funnel, right? This is where you need to do your most exclusion, right? The top of the funnel. So you forget to exclude buyers at the top of the funnel, okay? And number 3, right, you're still overlapping, right? You're still overlapping, and you don't have the proper exclusions. So no exclusions. Guys, you're gonna think I'm crazy, right? But you're crazy if you're not adding exclusion strategies, all right? And this happens mostly at the top of the funnel. So success loves speed, and where you start off, you'll finish. So if you start off your campaign overlapping the wrong people, right, you're going to increase your ad spend, right? You're going to usually try to change your creative. You're going to stop and start. You're going to try to throw more money at the ad campaign, okay? So don't make these common mistakes, okay? Don't retarget the people who bought, right? Make sure you are implementing exclusion strategies at the top of the campaign, all right? And make sure that you are not overlapping the strategy, right? And make sure you are excluding, okay? Let's get into the actionable steps. Let me show you how to do it. Let me tell you how to do it, all right? So actionable steps, okay? The top of the funnel, right, is where you have your awareness, and the middle of the funnel is where you have your nurturing, right? Your rebranding, right? Your reminding, right? So you want to make sure that you're doing the majority of the exclusions at the top of the funnel and the middle of the funnel, right? At the beginning of your campaign and the middle of your campaign. You want to make sure you're doing that, okay? You cannot offer someone a discount, right, and they already used the product, right? If you're offering someone a discount and they already bought a ticket, that means that you aren't targeting the right person. And then to the consumer, right, it feels sloppy. Like sloppy target marketing. So you want to make sure you avoid that, okay? So what you don't want to do is offer a discount to folks at the middle of the funnel and the bottom of the funnel, right, when they already bought, right? So number 2, you want to exclude the people who've already attended, right? And the way you do this is you make sure that you don't have overlapping segments, okay? So you have to exclude the people, right? So you have to exclude. Exclude the overlapping audiences. The way you do this is you want to make sure that you are laser focused on the right people that you are targeting. All right. And then lastly, this entire strategy is making sure that you are moving smart, right? That your marketing, right? Don't do spammy, sloppy, or unaware targeting. Okay. This keeps your ad costs down if you don't do spammy, sloppy, unaware targeting. Okay. Target the right people at the right time so that you save your resources and your money and you talk to the right people at the right time. If you do this, your content, if you do this right, your content won't feel scammy. It won't feel sloppy. It will feel targeted the right way. Okay. So the biggest takeaway here is at the top of the funnel, right? Right at the top of the funnel, you have to make sure inside of your ad set, right? Inside of your ad set, that you are excluding those people that purchased in the last 7 to 20 days, in the last 7 to 30 days, right? You want to exclude those people that purchase because you don't want to start off on the wrong foot, okay? So that wraps up the power of exclusion strategy, okay? Again, it matters because I'm here to save you money and make you more money, right? I don't want the ad to fatigue, all right? Right, that's why it matters. We don't want to force the ad budget, right, to overspend. So we want to make sure that we're not programming sloppy content to the wrong person, right? We don't want to make sure that we're talking to the wrong person at the wrong time, all right? So make sure inside of your ad sets at the top of the funnel, you guys are adding exclusion to the people who already purchased. Okay, that wraps up number 4, key audience strategy to make sure you are implementing the event cheat codes the right way. So look, this is the golden nugget. Okay, this is when you want to get even closer to the screen. All right, this is where you want to get your Sharpie out because here's where the tickets get sold. Okay, it's called dynamic marketing and dynamic retargeting. Okay, guys, 90% of your tickets will be sold in that bottom of the funnel. Okay, and this is where you kick on the gears of the retargeting. All right, this is where you close the gap. This is where you pat people on the back because they've already watched, they've already viewed, they've already initiated some type of activity on your site. Okay, so you're almost there. So let's talk about why dynamic retargeting really matters, and let's talk about the 3 steps. Okay, so the first step is that dynamic retargeting really matters because it re-engages warm leads. Okay, so this re-engages warm leads that didn't convert the first time. All right, this is huge because you need to know how to talk to the people at this stage in an urgent way, in a scarcity way, right? In a way that creates FOMO. So if you re-engage with the warm leads at this time, right, this just means that you're talking to the people that didn't convert the first time. So now it's that right time, okay? All right, so the next stage is it boosts the ROI, all right? It boosts the ROI, right? It boosts the ROI mainly because you're targeting the right people who you've already showed content to, okay? It boosts the ROI. It makes sure that you are making the right sales at the right time and you're not wasting money, okay? So you're showing the content to people who are already in that mindset. They just need to see the right messaging and feel a fear of missing out, Okay. 3, it feels personal. Right? And it increases conversions. Okay. At this stage, it feels personal because, right, that person has already committed the activity, right? And they've already committed that activity not knowing that you know that they committed that activity, okay? So once you retarget them with the right messaging, right, with the right touch, with the right feel, right, with the right brand tone, right, it feels personal, right? It feels like you knew that they spent some time looking at a VIP section, or you knew that they clicked the URL and sent it to the homies, right, or sent it to their girl group, right? So the dynamic retargeting here is really, really huge because you're in this warm bubble, all right? Let's get into the common mistakes, all right? So the common mistakes, number 1, is you don't want to serve the same ad repeatedly to the wrong type of people, right? So don't use the same ad with no ad rotation. Okay? Mainly, guys, what this means is like you don't want to burn out your audience by seeing the same messaging, right? That is going to burn them out, right? And it's going to increase your ad spend, all right? So you have to retarget the right people, right? By using different audiences, by using the right retarget audience, but you have to retarget the right people with the right messaging, right? And you have to talk to them with a different ad rotation, right? Don't use the same ad, all right? Number 2, right? Running the same bottom of funnel activity to everybody that clicked. Don't run. Okay, right? That's a really big common mistake, right? Don't run the same bottom of the funnel ad to everybody that clicked. Number 3, okay? Not using dynamic creatives, right, to personalize the delivery. Okay, so here are the common mistakes, guys. Do not use the same ad with no ad rotation, right? Don't run the same bottom of the funnel ad to everybody that clicked. My favorite, right? Don't overlook not using, right, the right dynamic creatives. You gotta switch out your creatives, right? You gotta switch out your creatives so that it is personal and it's consistent. Okay, it can't feel the same. That's lame. It can't feel old and washed up. All right, so these are some of the common mistakes that you want to make sure that you review so that you don't make them anymore. All right, so let's get into the golden nugget. All right, again, this is where you're going to sell your tickets. Again, this is where you're going to talk to the people who are interested, right, in the last 7 to 10 days. Again, this is where somewhat close to 90% of your tickets are sold. Okay, so this is the scenario. Imagine someone added a ticket to your cart and then they bounced, right? This is a prime situation. This is a prime specific situation for you to retarget them within 48 hours, okay? All right, so the best way to retarget them is to retarget with testimonials. Okay, number 1 action step, retarget with testimonials. Okay, you want to retarget with testimonials because, right, the testimonials are doing the marketing for yourself. The testimonials are already talking to a warm person, and then it's another warm person saying, hey, look, I had this experience. People usually trust other people with the experiences, especially in the marketing stages, right? Right, it's not you doing the talking with your ads, it's someone else. You're presenting someone else doing a warm pitch, right? Saying, hey, come along, this is what I did. Huge action step. All right, number 2, right? You want to use the dynamic creative setting, right, in the campaign portion, and you want to automatically test images. Use it to automatically test image copies and CTA. So turn on the dynamic creative. Guys, all this means is that it's going to help you with their AI, add different creatives, but also it's going to pull different creatives from your ads manager, right? From your previous ads. It's going to allow you to add and test different images, different copy, okay, and different call to actions. All right. So turn on your dynamic creative, right? It's going to find the winning image, copy, and CTA, right? And during the retargeting phase, that's when you need it the most. You need to find the image that the people are the most attracted to. All right. All right. Next, you want to be able to, you have to rotate your offers. All right. So rotate the offers as in countdown 1, countdown 2, final countdown. Okay, all right. So these are just, hey, almost sold out. We got 5 days left. Almost sold out. We got 3 days left. Almost sold out. Tomorrow's the event, okay? You have to rotate the image of your offer, and you have to rotate it with the messaging in your event, okay? It won't slow down your ad, all right? You have to rotate it, all right? And then lastly, but not least, you can segment, right? You can segment based on time. So you can segment each ad based on 1 day, 3 days, 7 days, right? And you can do that based on the different views. So people who viewed it for 1 day, people have viewed it 3 times, people have viewed it 7 days in a row, all right? Done right retargeting will not be annoying, right? It's a friendly follow-up that drives the right action, okay? So to wrap this up, guys, here's why it matters. You need to re-engage with the right people, right? So in this stage, this is the last 7 to 10 days, right? In this stage, right, you want to know how to boost your return on your investment, all right? And that is programming retargeting ads and having multiple creatives, okay? You want to make sure all of your captions, right, feel personal, right? Make them personal. Make sure they are personal, because it will increase your conversions. All right, common mistakes to avoid, right? Don't use the same ad creative, right? You gotta be able to go in there and have enough videos, have enough static images to rotate the ads, all right? Don't run bottom of the funnel ads, right, to only the people that clicked, okay? Make it a little bit broader, all right? And then also, you want to make sure that you are using dynamic creative, right? Don't avoid, it's a common mistake, don't avoid dynamic creative. So the action steps here, the gold nugget, the takeaway to sell your tickets, right? I would do retargeting with testimonial videos. I would also do retargeting that's personal with videos that show and showcase that your event is well attended, like almost sold out videos, crowded photos, people dancing and engaging, right? So those are going to be the biggest ticket sales, right? When you can show that people are engaging. So testimonials plus engaging video, okay? And we all know what that is, like people at the bar, people dancing, a large crowd, right? Turn your dynamic creative on, right? So that it finds the right image, copy, and call to action that will work for the people in that buying stage, all right? And then last but not least, don't be afraid. Friendly reminder, don't be afraid to rotate that offer, okay? Rotate the offer with different content, but this is the stage where I would have different countdowns, right? And I would have different countdowns retargeting the people who viewed the page multiple times, okay? So that wraps up dynamic retargeting. Again, this is when you're gonna do the majority of your ticket sales, all right? Power, right? This drives the people to stop. right? So you got to know that you have an engaging piece of content, right? So that's why it matters, right? It's the conversion power. This makes sure that people stop and gives you a chance at people engaging and people potentially converting, all right? So this is why it matters, conversion power. Number 2, right? Different ads, right, respond to different visuals and hooks, okay? So different visuals, hooks, okay, and CTA, okay, right? Different audiences are all going to respond to a different visual, all right, and different hook and a different CTA. So you want to make sure that each one of your pieces of creative is engaging. You don't want to just have one that's really good and the other 2 that's poor. That's going to drive up your cost per acquisition, okay? And it's going to give you a least amount of chances for people to stop and scroll or stop and engage, rather. So you want to make sure that you have different visuals, different hooks, and different CTAs for people inside of your creative elements to make sure that people are tapping in with you. Make sure people actually don't only just view, they stay, okay? Right? And then my favorite is strong creatives, right? They create strong engagement, all right? So strong creatives, right? Strong creatives increase engagement, all right? They also increase conversions. Okay. All right. The main point here, guys, is that we want to make sure that we are putting in quality, right? Garbage in, garbage out. So the quality, right, will give you strong engagements. The quality will give you strong conversations and stronger conversations and stronger conversions, right? They will be conversing on your ad, right? Conversing as in commenting, conversing as in clicking, conversing as in sharing, okay? So you want to make sure that you understand the power behind, right, not putting out really poor content, right? Thinking it through, solving a problem. You want to make sure that you have different visuals and different hooks and different call to actions with each piece of content, which is your creative, right? And then you gotta make sure that it's speaking towards pain or it's speaking towards pleasure, okay? Right? So that's what I mean by strong, okay? I'm here to give you more precise examples. So that's what I mean by strong. It has to, right? The video has to speak for itself, right? Or you have to have someone speaking for you, right? The activity has to give an engagement that gives you pain, or it speaks to your pain, answers your pain, right? Or it talks about the pleasure that you're going to receive, right? The transformation of the outcome you're going to receive at that event, okay? So that's why having an effective creative really matters. All right, so let's get into some of the common mistakes because I want you to avoid those common mistakes, all right? All right, you don't want to run the same creative to everyone, right? Right? Don't run the same creative to everyone. All right? Right? It doesn't matter what type of stage you're at inside the funnel, right? Inside your campaign. Again, your campaign might be for 3 weeks before your event, 6 weeks before your event, 8 weeks before your event, right? Do not run the same creative the entire time. Right? Don't let that go over your head, right? You need to make sure you have multiple creatives, okay? Number 2, test your hooks, okay? All right. So you guys are making a really big common mistake because you're not testing your hooks. You're not testing your CTA, right? And then my favorite is I see you guys not testing the visual. Okay. Huge, right? Before you start your campaign, make sure you do an A/B test, okay? You guys are not doing A/B tests, right? To show you what content is going to perform better, right? What content actually just was more liked, more viewed, more engaged, right? You need to know this. If you have a piece of content, right, that has a good visual, but a weak call to action, it's going to tell you 6 to 8 weeks in advance, right? You need to know these things because maybe you can keep the visual and change the call to action, all right? So you need to know how to pivot. The plan here, the awareness here, why you're here is so you don't set it and forget it. I don't want you to set it and forget it. I don't want you to think you're that good, okay? Because the pixel is always moving, right? People are always moving in the stages, and you want to know how to talk to them at different stages with your creatives, all right? And then last but not least, right, you guys are making a common mistake, or you're just relying on branding. Okay, right? You're relying on branding, right? You have no clarity or value. Okay, I talked about that before. Make sure you are talking to people about the value. They have to know why. Why am I coming to this versus the next event? So you got to talk to them two ways, okay? People learn two ways. They either learn through pain or pleasure, all right? So you can't just rely on branding. You can't just rely, hey, look, I sold out this event is going to sell out next. Don't do that, right? Give people clarity and value. So let's get into the action steps, all right? This is the golden nugget here, all right? Tap in and tune in to this part. This is where you will win and make more money, all right? So the actionable steps here is, right, you got to think of your event like a DJ set, right? You need the songs and the energy to match the room, right? You got to look at this like a DJ set. The songs and the energy has to match the room. It can't be different songs and different energy if it doesn't match the room, all right? So we'll talk about top of funnel. We'll talk about the middle of the funnel, okay? And we'll talk about the bottom of the funnel. So my favorite, the top of the funnel. All right, you gotta use bold hooks. You gotta get people aware. You gotta tell a story. So here is where your storytelling, okay, with visuals and, right, your captions, okay, bold hooks. Remember when Snoop Dogg's first song was released? Remember when I listened to 50 Cent's Get Rich or Die Trying, right? You have to tell a story and then connect that to your event, all right? So that's the top of the funnel, right? That's how you introduce your brand's event, right? By telling a story, getting them aware, getting them excited, okay? So that is the top of the funnel. That's the action step at the top of the funnel. The middle of the funnel, all right? This is where you reinforce, right? So you reinforce social proof. All right, you reinforce social proof. This is where you can start utilizing some testimonials, right? But instead of testimonials, right, you can use behind the scenes content. Okay. All right, so in the middle of the funnel, meaning in the middle of your campaign, not at the end right before the event, but in the middle, right, you can start talking about who came to the last couple of events, right? Right, you can talk about all the star power. You can talk about what type of people that will be there, right? And then you can talk about, hey, look, you'll get access to this VIP room. You get access to an all access food ticket and drink ticket, right? You can start reinforcing the branding of the event there, okay? So that's that middle of the funnel, all right? Middle of the funnel, right? Middle of the marketing of the event, right? The bottom of the funnel, right? This is where you gotta go hard. This is where you go direct, right? Go direct for the offer. All right, this is where you go direct for the offer, right? Not only are you going to be speaking with urgency, with your captions and your content, you're going to be speaking with countdowns. with your captions and your content, okay? Right? So again, guys, you got to be able to have different creatives for the different stages of your event campaign, all right? The first stage is your top of the funnel where you're telling a story. So your visuals and your caption must tell a story, right? The middle of the funnel, right? You want to reinforce social proof, reinforce who came, why they came, what they did while they were there, right? Tell that story then. Give some behind the scene content, right? Talk about how powerful the VIP is. And then the bottom of the funnel is where you add scarcity, right? You say, hey, look, we only have 50 more tickets left and 300 people have committed, right? This is where you say, hey, look, you're gonna miss out. We're only doing 2-for-1 tickets for the last time at this price, right? You're gonna go for people buying and tell people why they need to buy at a specific time, all right? And you can do that also with countdowns, all right? So test 3 to 5 ad creatives that look just like this, right? So that it doesn't kill your asset, right? And then when you have overperformers, you can just pause the ad, right? And just go with the ones that are performing the most, right? And you could double down on what works. So that wraps up, right? Why creative optimization is so huge, right? Again, conversion power, right? Different visuals, different hooks, right? Stronger creatives, right? Make sure you are, right, removing your mindset from running the same creative the whole time, all right? Make sure you do A/B tests, because that'll test the hook, that'll test the call to action, that'll test your visual, right? And make sure you're not just relying on who you were for the last event, right? That doesn't mean you're gonna sell out this event, right? Make sure you're adding clarity and value. And again, we talked about the action steps, right? So make sure you're killing it and optimizing for greatness with all of these creative strategies. All right, family, last but not least, we're going to finish off the 7 strategies of building correct custom audiences and using custom audiences as a powerhouse to boosting ticket sales and having better engagement with the best and final way to finish it off, right? Constant and consistent measurement of your activity, right? This allows you to scale. So again, we're going to talk about consistent measurement and scaling. Okay, here's why it matters, all right? Your audience isn't sitting still, right? They are evolving, right? They're doing different things. They're in different places. They're laughing. They're sharing the videos, right? They're traveling, right? So you have to check in on your advertising, right? To make sure that optimization is correct, make sure you're scaling, and make sure you're pivoting the right way. Again, because your audience is not stagnant. So you have to continue to measure your ads, okay? All right, so let's get into why it matters, all right? It matters, constant measurement matters because you actually, right, you actually see what's working, all right? You actually see what's working, all right? The biggest success finds your event activity with the pivot. So if you want to find your event activity into programming a successful event, you gotta really know what's working, all right? So again, you constantly have to measure your ads and review your ads daily, all right? All right, so number 2, you wanna also prevent a burnout, right? You wanna prevent a burnout with yourself first mentally, but I would say a burnout with ad fatigue, right? And a burnout with ad performance. Okay? So if you're measuring your ads daily, right, you can prevent the ad from fatiguing and increasing your CPA and increasing your CPC, right? Your cost per click, right? You want to make sure your metrics are low and fair so that you're utilizing your budget the right way, right? And it costs you less money to sell more tickets, all right? So you can prevent a burnout if you're just constantly managing your tickets. You don't want to set it and forget it, all right? Number three, right? It's going to help you if you manage and measure, right? You are going to constantly be able to measure your return on ad spend, okay? Right? So measuring your return on your ad spend, it keeps your brand growing. It keeps you in a positive stage of fulfillment, okay? So measuring your return on your ad spend allows you, like I said before, to find the most inexpensive cost per acquisition so that you can continue to keep reaching more people, right, for less money, all right? So let's get into some of the common mistakes here, all right? So the common mistakes that I see a bunch of us, not only the obvious of just setting and forget it, but you scale too fast. The point here, family, is you want the data to tell you when to scale, all right? You don't want to scale too fast, right? You also don't want to increase the budget more than 20 to 30%, right? Every day or two, right? You want to only increase the budget within 20 or 30%, right? If you increase it 50% or 60% or double it, right? You are going to slow down your ad. It's going to go back into the learning phase. So again, don't scale too fast, okay? Use these metrics. I've done this for 12 years. So only increase the budget 20 to 30%, right? Daily. You can increase your budget 20 to 30% daily without slowing down the learning phase, all right? Number two, all right, ignoring breakdowns in audience, age, or replacement. So ignoring the breakdowns of your audience by age or by placement. Okay? Ignoring your breakdown of got it. All right, so that's number two. Okay? And number three is not pausing weak performers. Okay. Inside of the academy, we are always going to tell you to observe, watch, and execute on pausing what's not working. Pausing what's overspending. Pausing what's going to increase your CPA or CPC, okay, or cost per metric. Wait, you have to pause so that you can pivot, okay? All right, so let's get into some actionable steps, all right? The actionable steps here, right? You have to imagine that you are steering a ship without checking the roadmap, right? You have to know where you're going, right? And you have to measure where you're going to get to your destination the fastest and the safest way, right? We don't want you to drift off course, all right? So these are the things to monitor, and this is how you monitor them, all right? So you want to monitor KPIs by funnel stage. Okay, so you want to monitor the KPIs by funnel stage, okay? And again, if you've been tapping into the academy, we are talking about the top of the funnel, the middle of the funnel, and the bottom of the funnel, okay? So let's get into the top of the funnel, right? Your KPIs are your key performing indicators, all right? Measuring your key performing indicators will keep you on track, right, to selling out your event, all right? So at the top of the funnel, you want to measure your cost per metric, all right, plus your CTR, all right? That's what you want to measure at the top of the funnel. You want to make sure that these aren't in a crazy stage, right? You want to make sure that these are giving you the lowest cost per metric based on your ticket price, okay? You want to make sure that you are getting the lowest cost per metric on your ticket price. All right. So the middle of the funnel. All right. You want to make sure, one of my favorite is you're looking at your cost per click. All right. And you also want to make sure you're looking at your CPL. All right. These are huge, right? Then for the most important KPI, all right, the most important KPI is you want to make sure you're looking at your return on your ad spend, right? Your ROAS, your return on your ad spend, right, will tell you your conversions. Okay, return on your ad spend. So you want to make sure you're monitoring these conversions and your return on your ad spend. Okay, these are some actionable steps to make sure that you know what you're looking after, right? So inside your Facebook ad manager, right, you want to arrange it where you track your cost per metric, right? You track your CTR, you track your CPC, you track your CPL, and you track your ROAS and your conversions, right? These are all done at different stages, right? So they're all done with different campaigns. So one campaign could be the top of the funnel, one campaign is your middle of the funnel, and one campaign is your bottom of the funnel. Once you're looking at those campaigns on your Facebook ad manager, that's how you know, hey, look, let me track this, right? Let me look at the views per click. Let me look at how much I had to spend, right, to engage. So you're gonna look inside of the creative and the campaign side to see, hey, look, what type of activity is giving me my cost per result, okay? And is this activity too high? So maybe one of the videos has a higher cost per click. Maybe one of the static images, right, is spending too much, right? Maybe something is spending too low, too little, right? So you usually want to go with whatever is performing, right? Whatever is performing at a lower cost per click or lower cost per acquisition, just based on your ticket price, all right? All right, so you want to use automated rules that kill your ad set, all right? You can scale ones that are 3 times by 20%. That's a good metric to keep by, right? And you just want to schedule weekly optimization check-ins, right? You want to schedule weekly audience check-ins. You want to relocate the budget. Like I said, only increase the budget by 20 or 30%, all right? Doing these things, right, this ensures that your ad strategy, it stays sharp, right? It stays lean, right? You're not overspending, right? It improves it. This will help you constantly improve, right, your ad spend and constantly improve your ticket sales. Okay, so let's give a quick recap. Constantly measuring your tickets and your ad performance will help you sell more tickets, reach more people, reach the right people, okay, right? It'll also help you scale the right way, all right? So you need to see what's working to either to be able to pivot. You need to see what's working to know what to change, all right? This will prevent you mentally from burning out and your ad from burning out, right? All right, this will help you return and measure your returns with your return on your ad spend and keep your brand clean, right? Make sure you avoid scaling too fast, right? I've said it once, I've said it twice, I've said it 3 times. Do not, right? If you have a daily ad spend, do not increase the budget more than 20 to 30%, right? If you do, right, it's gonna slow down your learning phase, all right? So make sure you stay with that metric. Make sure you also, right, you pause the weak performers, and the way you're gonna be able to do that is by tracking the KPIs the right way. In the top of the funnel, you track the CTR and the CPM, right? This is all based on your ticket price. At the middle of the funnel, you track your CPC and your CPL. At the bottom of the funnel, you track your ROAS, right, and your conversions. That wraps up the constant measurement and the scaling and allows you to be aware of how to pivot, when to pivot, so that you can sell more tickets, right, and be on pace to selling out your event. Okay, family, look, that is a wrap, right? We gave out so much game here. You can literally stop, pause, and rewind all of this information and go execute it on it today, right? If you have an upcoming event in the next 3, 4, 5 weeks, right? Even next week, you can go implement these strategies today. Again, guys, I am a 6 to 7 figure earner behind hosting some of the best events in your city and across the country. And this was a masterclass for you here, right? A short masterclass for you to learn the power of custom audiences, okay? We walked you through the awareness stage, right? We walked you through the engagement and the conversion stage on how to create custom audiences that convert, custom audiences that will boost your marketing and make sure you're saving time, saving energy, and you're not burning out with your old strategies, all right? Go on and like, subscribe, and follow the Millennium Academy, and we'll see you on another side of your next sold out event or on the next episode of the Millennium Academy's event cheat codes. Peace.